Hey everyone, this is Kim O'Neill from the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, and you're listening to the Going North podcast with the hilarious Dom Brightman. Be sure to subscribe to his show so you don't miss any episodes, and remember, every day is always a new day.
And today on the Going North podcast, we're bringing some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is another one of those occasions. It's another returning guest for Women's History Month in the building, baby. Another returning guest. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You probably remember her from last April when it was the start of a certain evil disease known as COVID-19 that's been wreaking havoc on humans, that caused us to get into more cyber closeness. Well, cyber closeness is still in effect because this fabulous lady right here is back and better than ever and not better than ever. So let's give it up for the fabulous MO herself, Miss Miranda Oh. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling fabulous. Considering there is a, big old virus out there, life is pretty darn good. So I'm lucky, blessed, feeling very blessed.
Ah, yeah, blessed and not stressed indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Unless you're stressing people to really jump into the metaphorical rabbit hole of chin up, tits out, that is.
Well, you know what? I think it's a perfect time to jump into the rabbit hole in the realm of chin up, tits out, because it's getting cold. The quote unquote second wave is hitting us. So we're stuck at home, or we're looking for Christmas gifts for that special someone. And Chin Up Tits Out is 3 books. So why not hunker down, grab yourself your favorite holiday drink and a box of tissues, potentially, perhaps. And, do a little bit of away with the TV and open up the books and see what you can enjoy from that wild ride.
Yeah, that's right. This, that, and all the bacon fat, right?
Yes, it's that big fat.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. So last time we chatted, you had this wonderful project that you're working on where you interviewed over 100 ladies about the evilness known as endometriosis. How's that process been?
You know what? Funny story. Well, not funny story, but pretty cool story. I just finished my 80th interview tonight, about an hour before we're doing this recording. So it has been a process. You have COVID that has hit people. You have civil wars and marches and protests and government backlash, and that's happening all around the world right now, which has impacted my ability to interview some women. You're getting ready and gearing up for an interview somewhere with somebody, and they send you a message and they're like, hey, so a bomb just went off in my building, so I'm now taking my injured grandmother to the hospital. I'm like, hold on a minute, sorry, what? And then then the next couple of days they post what had happened on their social media, and you're just like, how? I know we were only connecting on Zoom and we're still millions of miles away, but that hits close to home because you're involved with that person's in that moment. And so you have pandemic, you have drama and chaos, and then on top of that, you're dealing with people that are sick. One woman was like, sorry, I'm in the hospital, and I've been in the hospital for a few days. I thought I would be out and be able to do this interview, and I'm not. I'm waiting for emergency surgery right now. And I'm like, what? It's life is crazy in 2020, and so I'm taking these interviews as fast as they'll come or as slow as they'll come. Every weekend is pretty much geared to doing these interviews. And then Monday, Tuesday nights as well, I do interviews. So my weeks are consumed with talking about endometriosis and lady bits and all the fun joys that come with lady bits that we all have, or that we might be intrigued by. So we're so close to done, and the creative process on trying to map these books out is starting to evolve and come to light. And I am so excited. The amount that I've learned the amount that I've experienced and the women that I have connected with globally have impacted me personally so much and helped me on my journey so much. I can't wait to actually get pen to paper and put this out there for everybody.
That's right. Putting it out there like bread in the bread basket. That's what I'm talking about,
Yes,
indeed.
exactly. Just like putting that hot fresh bread right out on the windowsill, and like, ooh, it just, the sniff of it, the scent of it, it just kind of intrigues you. So I'm hoping that I not only do proud to all the women that I've interviewed, but really intrigue people that either have lady bits themselves or are intrigued by lady bits themselves, that you might want to pick up these books and learn a little about what it's like to have a set that give us some interesting journeys along the way.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You can say that again. So, congrats on 80 folks interviewed. And after 100, I'm assuming the writing process will continue to go into probably full gear after that, I imagine.
Full gear. So right now my goal is to take the 100 interviews and split them into 3 different groups. So each group is going to be women in different age categories, so different decades, women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and plus. And I mean, anybody in their 20s, 30s, and 40s can look forward or look back and know that my mind is going to change, my priorities are going to change when I reach a different decade, or I look back at a different decade. Your perspective change, all that changes. So I want to take all the women, let's say in their 30s, and take all those interviews and then pull and draw something from each and every one of those interviews, whether it's somebody's story. So I always say, like, hey, it might be a proposal story, it might be an emergency room story, it might be a birth story, it might be a I don't know, a work story, a promotion story, or it might be I lost my job, a COVID story. And if it's not a story from what they've shared with me, it might be a characteristic, a personality trait, how they hold themselves on the camera when we do meet one face to face, how they project themselves into life. Now, if it's not one of those, it may be a physical trait. So I did interview a woman and she was absolutely stunningly beautiful, but she was very elf-like. She reminded me of an elf character from The Lord of the Rings. Like, I had a flashback. I'm like, I need to watch Lord of the Rings. And I think half of the interview, I just typed out how what her face looked like and what her body looked like and how unique it was. And then, you know, her personality and her story was absolutely phenomenal as well. But there was physical characteristics that are going to help me build characters. So when I take one piece of every interview that I've had in that specific age category, I'm going to create characters with fictional characters with timelines and plots, but all of the information that I'm taking is drawn from real life scenarios and real life people. And I'm so excited. And I always go through this with all the women that I discuss this with, is this is my plan and this is how I'm going to do it. And it really allows them to open up and share some really interesting things. They're like, hey, I would never share this face to face with somebody because I don't want bad blood or create anything with any animosity with somebody in my life. But it might be a piece that you might use. And it's the juicy stuff in life, you know, the dark, twisted thoughts that they have that they probably wouldn't tell anybody else, but because it might only be a piece, that one piece that I take from their time, they'll share it with me. So I leave 5 hours on Saturdays and Sundays to get interviews done. And if I actually do book the 5 interviews and get those 5 interviews completed, by the end of it, I just sit at my computer desk and my partner looks at me. He's like, are you okay? I was like, I am drained. Like, imagine, like, I know what therapists feel like because people are just offloading everything on me. And I'm like taking notes and they're like, are you good? I'm like, yeah, keep talking. I'm just hammering at my keyboard. And like, it is emotionally and physically draining, but at the same time, so uplifting and inspiring. The stuff that women have to go through today and what they've gone through decades. And, just being a woman, the stuff that we have to go through being a woman and it's taboo. People don't want to talk about it. It makes them feel uncomfortable. And I just want to shed light on that. I want it to be okay. I want partners, men, to be able to go into a grocery store and buy pads and tampons for their partner without feeling ashamed. Yes, there are places and there are people that can do that, but there are countries where that's not allowed to happen. So women are stuck. If they're stuck at home, they don't have a partner, they don't have a dad or a brother to go pick up this stuff for them. They're stuck at home dealing with wads of toilet paper or Kleenex or just dealing with just stuff that, for me, I can call up my partner, I can call up my dad, I can call up my brother and be like, hey, so can you go to the corner store and pick me up this? Like, don't forget the ones with the wings. And it's okay to talk about it with us. But imagine a world, which is a reality for millions of women, where I can't ask my dad to go do that. I can't ask my partner to go do that for me. It's just not in the cards. It's not allowed. So I want to shed light on that. I want to make it more easier to talk about when it comes to dealing with lady stuff.
Yeah, because the world needs it indeed. Because shopping for that could be usually that and condoms. That's usually when the questions pop up.
I know. It's great. It's like, and it's so funny because like it's awkward. You're like, as a female, you go and unless you know exactly what you want, you sit there and you're staring at all the boxes of condoms and you're like, do I get the colorful ones? Do I get the flavored one? Do I need a maximum? Is this like a super large? And then you ask the dude and you're like, yo, do you need a super one? And of course he's not going to say no. Oh yeah, of course I need the super one. Like, and then you dare ask a girl, like, do you need the super tampons? Heck no, I don't need the super tampons. What are you saying about me? Like there's, and then there's like a whole aisle of feminine products. And you're like, what do I buy? How does this work? Like, I've gotten to a point where if I need, I just take a picture of the box. And then I send that picture of the box to whoever's buying for me. And then they go match the box to the picture. Like it's one of those match and grabs. That's all. It's like a game. Go match this and grab it. That's what you need to do. And you make it a joke, but yeah, it is a little awkward. But the more you talk about it, the less awkward it gets. And I think that's the whole point. And is the more we talk about it, the less awkward it gets. And the more we talk about it, the less alone we feel about it. And the more we talk about it, the more it's open and less it's open. And people shouldn't feel embarrassed about it. People shouldn't feel bad about it. It's a natural thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a tough thing. And sometimes it's more tough than beautiful. And that's okay too. Talking about it makes people connect in ways, makes it, relatable. And once people can connect and be relatable to it, then it's less alone feeling. And I think a lot of us feel alone at some point in our lives, whether we're male or female or have lady bits or don't have lady bits. Alone is like the worst feeling in the world. And if we can relate and connect to one another, then we feel a little less alone.
That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about right there. And it's so true. It's like certain conversations, like they're usually taboo or off limits. And sometimes we just have to start the conversations to make them less awkward for people. So eventually, once the awkwardness level dies, the action level can really advance further of what we can do about making things better.
Yeah, exactly. Once that awkward level dies down, then you make it better. Like I remember one of my first interviews, a woman I spoke to, her dad is a preacher or a pastor and super, super religious gentleman and very structured and rigid. And she is a fifth generation woman with endometriosis, but her mom, her grandma, like nobody ever talked about it. And so the first time her period showed up, she said she walked into her parents' room, was like, I don't feel good. And her dad kind of like turned her away, was like, it's no big deal. And then she dropped her pants and she's like, Satan is coming out of my body. And he was like, what? And then, she said her mom was like, got out of bed quickly and like tried to help her. And she's like, no, you pay attention to this, dad, because this is a thing. This is a family thing. We deal with this as a family. And she's like, I forced a man that was very uncomfortable to pay attention to one of the worst moments and memories of my life. And from there, they built a really great relationship. But he, it kind of was passed off. It was like, it's just a woman thing. Like, let your mom deal with this. And she's like, no, Satan. It's like, it's coming out and it's bad and it's not good. And, through that, he's taken her to doctor's appointments and to hospital visits and, been the first person that she's woken up to post-surgery. And just to have that relationship with your father that was so stark opposite before that is really, it's an accomplishment. And I think that, it's kind of funny. Like the first time my period came, my mom was out of town. I was at a volleyball tournament and my dad was like, so what do you need? I'm like, I don't know. What do you think I need? And he's like, I'll go to the store. And then he comes back with 2 big plastic bags filled with every single type of thing that you could get. And I'm like, I don't know how to use this. He's like, we're at a volleyball tournament. There's enough women here that know how to do it. Take these bags and deal. Like, I will help you. I'm down. But like, I don't know. Your mom hasn't had the parts in years. And I was like, thanks, Dad. And he's like, do you need chocolate? Like, I heard that that's something that helps. I'm like, yes, go buy me chocolates. So he bought me chocolate and like 2 bags of every kind of pad and tampon you could imagine. Like, and like, bless his soul, how many ever years later, he still is like, you good? Like, how's the tum? How are the lady bits? I'm like, we're good today. He goes, all right, that a girl. And he like looks down, he's like, that a girl too. And I'm like, thanks for talking to her too. She has a mind of her own. She likes to be acknowledged. Oh goodness. Yeah, the things that we go through, like, I swear. But I wouldn't want my relationship with my dad to be any other way. It's like, we're open, we're amicable, we talk about it, and being sick made us even more open and amicable to talk about it. And my brother's gay. Like, lady bits is the last thing he's intrigued about, but every single time we talk, if it's a bad day for me, he's always asking, like, how are things, how can I help? He's like, do we need to have a conversation with her down there? I'm like, no, we don't need to have it. He's like, okay, well, do I need to bring you chocolate? I'm like, no, chocolate is good, but it probably won't set me off. It will set me off today. So like, maybe like a cup of tea or something. So he might show up and bring a cup of tea and drop it off on my doorstep. Darn COVID. But it has brought us all closer. But if I wasn't so open to talking about it, and if I wasn't doing this series and learning about all the stuff that these women go through, then I don't think we would be as close as we are with it. And so for that, I'm grateful.
Yes, indeed. With a big old G and D for gratitude. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. That's what I'm talking about. And it's great that you have supported family like that, especially during times like these and times like those from the past that still help to keep it together like glue on paper.
Yeah, totally. We stick together like glue on paper. Exactly. And when you try to rip us apart, the whole paper rips apart. So it's like, it's all or nothing.
That's right. The corn cobs reign supreme.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, my goodness, so since we've last chatted, how's been the process with everything else in terms of the books? Has there been a major skill that you've been polishing up in these past few months since we last chatted?
You know what? My interview skills, I'm going to put that on the table, because not like, I'm interviewing for these books. I get interviewed a lot for my own books. And then I also co-host a podcast. So the last few months that in between our chit chat times is really honing down on interview skills, which then again turns into, and I might sound like I'm on a broken record and repeat myself, is like, is connecting with human beings. I can't connect with you face to face. I can't connect with you at a coffee shop or out at a restaurant or at a nightclub or in a conference or gathering. So I might as well connect with you virtually. But trying to connect with people virtually and asking questions that don't go anywhere really lead to some awkward silences and some like random stares at your computer screen, and you're like, sorry, are you glitching? Are you frozen? Hello. And no, I'm not frozen. And you're like, shoot, my bad. I was frozen. So interviewing all these women and interviewing for my podcast has really given me an opportunity to learn how to engage in better conversations and learn how to engage in conversations in the virtual realm, something that we're in more and more these days, not only for business, but for pleasure as well, is to connect with our family and friends that are out of town in different places around the world that we can't normally see. I can't hop on a plane and go to Mexico and meet some family for the Christmas holidays. I can't go to, Europe to meet all the wonderful women that I've interviewed over there. So I might as well connect with them virtually. So learning how to ask good questions is a communication tool that I've been trying to hone in on. And again, learning a lot, not only about how to ask questions, but about myself. And then learning a lot about when you ask good questions, how people react and respond to those good questions.
That's right. You see that shock and awe on their faces, and some folks like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. You ask a question, it completely stumps them, and you're like, oh, shoot, was that too hard? Like, it's got to taper back for next time. Or you see the light bulb, that shock and all this. I love when you ask a good, juicy question and you actually see the light bulb in people's eyes go off. And then as soon as they open up their mouth, it's this like verbal vomit that they just start talking and sharing. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, holy, are you going to take a breath? Like, I mean, that's me. I don't shut up when I start to talk. It happens all the time. But for other people to actually do it consistently, once you start asking these really good questions and get them to open up, it's like opening up a sink faucet or like a faucet all the way. Like the water just pours out, all the words just pour out. It is fantastic to see that, especially with people that are typically quiet.
Oh, yeah. It was so great to get the quiet ones to open up after a bit. It's like, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it is honestly the best. Like, because the quiet ones, you did something right. You push the right buttons to get them to open up.
That's right. And didn't even have to play the buttons by Pussycat Dolls at all to press the right buttons.
But that's always in my mind playing in the background, going like, pushing all your buttons, baby. And you're like, come on, this one, that one, this one. Or it's between Pussycat Dolls and like Mario Kart or like a video game, like bing, 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 bing. Like, you just try to, or whack-a-mole. You know how you play the game at the arcades when the mole whack came out and you had to whack it to get points? Like, that you're getting close and your points are getting up there when you start getting this person to talk more and more and more. And, when they make a really good point and then you just feed them a little bit more, and then they open up to another level. It's like an onion getting peeled, and you're like, man, you're about to get to that part in the onion where your eyes start to tear, and I can't wait.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So, it made you want to start a podcast of your own? Was it the fact that you've been on the guest side of the game? You're like, well, let me see if I could do this with a buddy of mine and make this magic happen. Like, what inspired that?
Oh, well, I was kind of voluntold, but not really voluntold. So our good friend, Mickey Mickelson, who is my publicist at Creative Edge, he was actually the one that connected me with my co-host, Jenna Greene. And she's a couple provinces west of me in Alberta. I'm in Manitoba. So we've never met face to face, and we're polar opposites, like polar opposites. I write chick lit that is driven by real, scenarios, and she writes fantasy with like fairies and talking trees and a whole bunch of stuff. And she's an elementary school teacher, and I work in the corporate structure world, and we just get along like oil and vinegar with a good, French baguette. Like, it's fantastic. And so he goes, "You guys are going to start a podcast," and we're like, "Yeah, we're going to start a podcast." And he goes, "No, seriously." We're like, "Sure." And then he's like, "No, seriously." And we're like, okay, so you're serious." He said it 3 times. So like, okay, we're good now. And we kind of chatted. We're like, we think that this is what we're going to do. And so we started interviewing authors from around the world. And so our podcast is called Quill and Ink. It's a podcast for book lovers. And really, we mostly interview authors, but sometimes we interview publishers. And in January, we're interviewing a musician, and we've interviewed journalists. So we've interviewed writers of all kinds. And we really take the show and we look at both of our talents. I like to dive into the personal, the deep stuff, obviously. And Jenna loves to dive into the writing and the building of the characters and the plot twists and all the big words in the literary industry. And I'm like, "Yeah, go Jenna." And she's like, "Yeah, go Miranda. You talk about sports and mental illness and, people's hobbies." And that's cool. So we both have our strengths, and then we slap it into a 30-minute show, and we kind of create some magic. One, the 30 minutes flies by, and two, we get to know these authors from literally around the world that share some pretty awesome stuff with us, what their hobbies are, what inspires them to be who they are. And then down to, what is your writing style? What is your process? Do you just go at it? Do you research for months on months on months? Or do you pick up a bottle of wine and just pour the wine in the glass and then pour your heart out into the computer? And, we're not only sharing and learning a lot ourselves, but with our watchers and our listeners, we're also sharing some knowledge and some tips and some tricks. And so we hope to inspire not only people that love books, but people that are wanting to write themselves. And maybe a little bit nervous on starting to write that first book or getting that first book published. And so we do share a lot of tips and tricks along the way and some little golden nuggets and insights. And we hope that we just continue to grow in time, and we take it from there. And it's been about a year, actually. I think it's actually been a year since we launched our first episode. So it's been a wild ride.
That's right. On the back of a horse on a roller coaster. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, pretty much, like arms up in the air going, "Oh my God, I hope I don't die." All while I'm sitting from my desk chair that has a swivel and rollers, and that's like, or wheels, and that's the extent of it. But it's nerve-wracking sometimes. Like, it's exhilarating, but it's nerve-wracking because you want to represent these people properly, and then you also want to kind of create a certain face for yourself as well and maintain that. So it is a whole new level of the literary industry and being a creative artist in itself. So we both think, when we look back on the last year, that it's not only helped us develop professionally, but we do think that ultimately it will develop our writing as well. So we're both super, super grateful for the opportunity and want to just keep riding with it.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Riding clean and dirty. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
Well, speaking of tips for writers, is there a tip or at least a positive lesson that you learned from publishing your 3 books that you wish you would have learned before you published your first book in the trilogy of your Chin Up Tits Out series?
I can tell you the biggest lesson that I've learned is to explore all your options. Don't be afraid to have multiple conversations with different types of authors or people that have published or publishers. Know what you're getting yourself into. For me, my 3 books were all published differently. So I had my hands involved in a little bit. I had my hands involved in none. I had my hands involved with more. So the 3 approaches that I've had with my 3 books, I've learned so much. Now, for me, I'm one of those people that have to go through learning the hard lesson in order for it to stick in my brain. So I could have done all the research beforehand and still wouldn't have learned as much as I did by going through it all. So if you did publish a book and it's not the way that you wanted it to be, that's okay. Try a different avenue the next time. The coolest thing about being an author these days is that there's a multitude of millions of approaches on publishing books and millions of approaches on getting your word out there. So just don't stop. Don't give up, and continue to strive with what your words are, because eventually you're going to make it. The one biggest thing that Mickey Mickelson with Creative Edge has given me is that everything is building blocks. You don't just jump up a ladder, you take step by step by step. And if you go step by step by step, you're building yourself a strong foundation so you don't fall. If you jump up too far, you might miss a step, and it's a pretty hard landing if you're high up. So building blocks, step by step, don't give up. You'll get there one day.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Brick by brick and stone by stone, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And that shows self-awareness too, admitting the fact that he could have still done all the research and still probably would have to still learn it the hard way.
oh shit, yeah. Like it just happens that way. Like I try, and my partner is the exact opposite in life. He will research and read and reread and read and reread, and I'll like skim through and do. And he's like, "Oh, woman, you stress me out." And I'm like, "Oh man, it's the way that I work." So it's everybody has different learning styles, and we're a product of that. We have opposite learning styles, but at the end of the day, we do get to the same conclusion. Just our paths and our journeys to the same conclusion is different, and that's totally okay. So yeah, I could have done all the research and I probably would have still had to learn the hard way, but I'm very happy that I went the way that I went with all 3 of my books, because now my next series, I kind of have a clearer picture on what I'm going to do and more confidence when I go into something solo versus being a new artist and not having that confidence in doing something solo or doing something with a partner. So you going through things and getting your hands dirty is the best way to learn for people like me.
That's right. The classic example of the universe holding the 2x4, patting it in his hand, just whacking you every time you don't get the lesson right.
Oh, yes. Yes. Could you imagine? My hands would be so bruised. Do it again.
Yeah.
I was like, no. I just have those like flashbacks of I can't remember what, but they're like army movies. So the army movies where you had they squat against the wall with their arms out and they're in the rain. I can't remember what movie that is, but that is learning a lesson the hard way. So like metaphorically, if I'm not doing a metaphorical squat in the rain with my arms out, then I'm not learning it to a point of never going to that dark place again. So it's definitely important.
Oh, yeah, I can say that again because I've experienced that squat before and it's not fun.
No.
It's god awful.
It is. It definitely is not pleasant, but it gives a good life lesson. And at the end of the day, the longer you squat and the more your arms are out, you're going to have a nicer booty and nicer arm definition. So there is benefit to it. There is benefit physically, literally and metaphorically.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. So speaking of nicer booty, if a book was to have a metaphorical nice booty in terms of a bad metaphor of making a successful book, what do you think the 3 ingredients for that would be?
Oh, 3 ingredients of a good book. I want to say you got to catch somebody's eye. because people judge books by its cover. So you got to have a catchy title and or a real good cover. So I know that's not necessarily an integral part of the book, but you got to get people actually interested in opening your book. So I think that's step number one, is having a catchy title or a really fantastic cover design. And then 2 and 3, you got to have a little bit of everything in there, multi-layer. It's the best thing about writing these days, is that you can have a thriller with a little bit of romance and a little bit of comedy in there. So you can kind of go multi-genre and still have a successful story. And 3, you got to have a good twist in there. Those are the best, where you have this page turner and your reader is like, I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. And they keep reading, and then all of a sudden they just get throat punched by your plot twist. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I want to hear you from another room go, no, that didn't. Because that's what happens when I pick up a good book and there's this plot twist. I will like yell, and everybody in the house is like, what's wrong with her? She's just reading. She's fine. But those plot twists are what get you hooked. And then you're like, okay, well, if this author can do this in this book, then that means that they can do it in another book. And like, I like life being predictable, but it's not predictable. Life has its own plot twist. And then, reading about something that's, that has a good plot twist just engages me and engulfs me into a book. And the reason why is because I don't want to deal with my life's plot twists. I want to deal with somebody else's plot twist. So I might as well do it in between a book cover and cover. Like, just, I want to deal with their problems, not my own. It gets me a good escape.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. Give your books the leggings, the booty. That's right. AKA the good plot twist in the cover. That's what I'm talking about, indeed.
Yes. 100%. Oh, goodness gracious.
Sweet. Well, enough of my bad analogies before they go deeper down the rabbit hole. So we're coming down to the magical question for returning guests. And that is, if you were called to give the final keynote speech of your life for 90 straight minutes, and all 6 billion people in the world had to have their eyes on you and give you all their attention. So that means no smartphones unless that was part of the presentation. What would be the message of that speech and the main points of it?
Oh, I think my messaging for this kind of question has stayed the same for 2020. And it is, simply put, everything is temporary. The good and the bad and the ugly and the beautiful are all temporary. So if you're going through something bad and ugly right now, which lots and lots of us are with COVID, then keep your head held high, chin up, tits out, right? In true mantra fashion. Know that it's temporary and know that it will pass. Now, if you're going through something beautiful and good, keep your head held high, keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. Know that it's temporary. So be present and appreciate and be grateful and filled with all the gratitude that you can be filled with, because you can, if you have a relationship that's great, awesome, that's great. It doesn't mean that it's going to turn out bad. It just means that you will eventually be faced with challenges with one another. If you get a really great job, that's fantastic. It doesn't mean that it's going to turn into a bad job or that you might lose it. You just might get handed a project that's really difficult, that challenges that level of happiness and enjoyment that you have. And again, it's temporary. So simply put, everything is temporary. So be present and grounded and grateful for those great moments, and those bad moments, be confident that you will pass through this, and that it's just meant to be part of your journey, and there's going to be a life lesson that comes through this. I promise you.
Woo! Mic dropping the fireworks from the stage, baby. Woo! Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So for those who want to keep in magical contact with Miss MO herself, Miranda Oh, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
You can reach me on my Instagram page or my Facebook page. Those are the two pages that I'm mostly active on, and it's super easy. On Instagram, I'm Miranda Oh, and that's OH, Miranda OH. Facebook, you can just type in Miranda O or Chin Up Tits Out. You can find me on Twitter as well, which is Miranda O. My website is mirandao.com, and you can find my books on Amazon. Just type in Chin Up Tits Out or Miranda O, and you'll see all three books there. So, but if you're really interested in my new series, the most information that I have on my new series is on my Instagram page. I have a whole highlight reel there that shows you the progress of my interviews and some of the stuff that we talk about. And I'm super excited to kind of share that because a lot of the women that I've interviewed are all connected through there as well. So it gives everybody an opportunity to connect and relate and kind of join into this Love My Lady Bits movement that I'm trying to create.
Woohoo! Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. OHIO, Miranda O is fabulous. We know. So keep in fabulous contact with her. Follow her on her wonderful podcast too as it grows and gets better. And not butter and buy some copies of her magical books and wares and be on the lookout for that fourth book from Miranda because it'll be super special, awesome, special for the ladies in your lap indeed. Yes,
Yes.
indeed. Yes, indeed. So, any parting words before I stop the recording?
Oh, parting words is just to thank you for your time again, Dom. It is always a pleasure to chat with you, regardless whether it's talking about chin up and tits out or lady bits. We always have a good time, and we can throw some dad jokes in there as well. So, again, thank you for your time and your open invitation. I am very grateful.
How's it going, my friend? I'm glad you made it to the end. That shows that you really enjoyed what you heard and you are an uncommon finisher. Thanks for giving this show a listen. If you really want to help out the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that you care about or someone that needs to hear this message because we want to spread this podcast around like butter on bread if that's your type of thing. And if it's not your type of thing, still spread it around anyway because good stuff needs to be shared with good people like yourself.